What if I told you that debt does not start with a house, a car, or a business loan? It starts much smaller. It starts with $500, a credit card balance, a payday loan, I will pay it next month promise. Then it grows. $1,000 turns into stress. $5,000 turns into pressure. $20,000 turns into fear. $100,000 can destroy your sleep, your relationships, and your confidence. And $500,000? That is not just debt anymore. That is a life sentence for many people. But here is the truth most people never hear. Debt does not only destroy your money, it changes your mind, it changes your habits, it changes who you become. In this video, we are going to break down every level of debt, from small debt to massive debt, and you will see exactly how people fall into it, why it gets worse, and how some people escape while others stay trapped for years. So stay until the end, because the level of debt you are in now may be smaller than you think, but if you ignore it, it can become the hardest problem of your life. $500 does not feel serious. A person may think, it is fine, I will cover it next month. This is where debt becomes dangerous, because small debt feels harmless. Maybe it started with an emergency, maybe the fridge broke, maybe the car needed repair, maybe someone used a credit card for a few bills and thought they were being smart. At this level, people usually do not panic. They still believe they are in control. But the real problem is not the amount. The real problem is the habit. Once a person gets comfortable with borrowing, they begin using debt as a solution for normal life. Instead of planning, they swipe. Instead of saving, they borrow. Instead of adjusting spending, they hope future income will save them. This is how debt becomes normal. And once debt becomes normal, the mind changes. The person may stop checking balances. They may avoid opening bank apps. They may tell themselves it is only a small amount. But that small amount is often the first crack in the wall. At this level, the damage is not financial yet. It is behavioral. This is the stage where people still have the best chance to fix everything quickly. A few extra shifts, a small budget, a temporary cut in spending, and the debt can be cleared. But if ignored, it grows into something far more dangerous. Because debt never asks for permission to grow. It grows through interest, late fees, stress spending, and bad decisions made under pressure. That tiny $500 can become the first step into a much bigger trap. This is where the math leaves your spreadsheets and enters your head. At $1,000, you begin running mental calculations during your commute. At $3,000, real worry takes root. By $5,000, a heavy layer of internal shame sets in. The numbers are officially bleeding into your daily existence. On the outside, you look perfectly fine. You go to work, you laugh with coworkers, and you maintain appearances. But internally, you are carrying weight. Every incoming text alert sparks a moment of suspicion. Every monthly utility bill feels heavier than the last. Any unexpected expense, a broken phone, a dental visit triggers instant internal panic. To cope, you begin making highly emotional, short-sighted financial moves. You open a new credit card just to balance transfer the old one. You ask a family member for an awkward loan. You rely heavily on buy now, pay later apps at the checkout counter. You convince yourself that you are actively solving the problem, but in reality, you are just moving the cargo around on a sinking ship. It is a dangerous illusion. This tier creates a self-sustaining psychological loop. Stress leads to emotional spending, which creates more debt, which amplifies the stress. Eventually, a sense of paralysis creeps in. You start thinking, I am too far behind to catch up anyway. That single thought is infinitely more destructive than the actual balance. Because the moment you believe recovery is impossible, you stop trying. Your finances descend into chaos. To break this cycle, you do not just need cash, you need a psychological win. You need to see tangible progress. Paying off the smallest card entirely, cutting a single major luxury, or accumulating a modest cash cushion does something critical. It restores your agency. The greatest risk at this stage isn't filing for bankruptcy. It is surrender. And surrender ensures you stay trapped far longer than necessary. At this level, the debt is no longer a hidden thought. It actively dictates how you live. You can no longer ignore the statements. It begins compromising your ability to pay rent comfortably, buy quality food, or build a real savings account. You might be diligently paying the minimum requirements every month, but the principal balance refuses to budge. The high interest rates are swallowing your sacrifices whole. The debt has become a permanent shadow over your paycheck. The moment your direct deposit hits, it is already spoken for. A massive portion belongs to the bank, a portion goes to basic survival, and your disposable income vanishes before you can even process it. Life begins to feel severely restricted. This is also where people begin sacrificing the wrong things. They will cut out crucial health necessities or insurance while desperately clinging to expensive habits to maintain a false sense of normalcy. They abandon emergency funds completely, making them utterly defenseless against the next real-life crisis. They avoid social gatherings because they cannot afford the dinner bill, and they begin hiding the truth from partners or close friends. That absolute secrecy creates an unbearable emotional pressure cooker. The debt stops being a metric on a screen and transforms into a core source of personal shame. Desperation breeds high-risk choices. You take out high-interest personal loans to consolidate credit lines, or you lean into predatory cash advances. You convince yourself it is a tactical pivot, but without a fundamental overhaul of your habits, you are merely building a taller wall around the exact same prison. Your health inevitably pays the toll. You lose deep sleep. Your focus at your day job fractures. Disagreements with loved ones turn volatile. Your mind is running a background script of financial dread 24 hours a day, leaving you chronically exhausted. Yet, this tier remains completely defeatable. The turning point requires you to stop treating this as a temporary stroke of bad luck. Debt under $20,000 can be completely dismantled through aggressive lifestyle restructuring, income expansion, and radical consistency. The problem isn't that the math is impossible. It is that most people wait until they hit rock bottom before they take a definitive stand. Now, the debt is completely driving the vehicle. It dictates your career choices, your stress levels, and your daily behavior. At this stage, you feel like you are working exclusively for the benefit of your creditors. You might actually earn a highly respectable salary, but it feels entirely meaningless because the debt service consumes the majority of your take-home pay. Every calendar month becomes a predictable, exhausting cycle of automated payments, financial anxiety, and profound disappointment. Welcome to the chronic pressure stage. Most individuals carrying this balance are managing complex layers of life events, a messy divorce, lingering medical crises, a failed entrepreneurial venture, sudden job transitions, or a decade of unaddressed lifestyle creep. You are likely juggling a toxic cocktail of student loans, auto financing, revolving credit cards, and personal loans simultaneously. This structural complexity makes taking action incredibly overwhelming. Faced with this complexity, most people completely freeze. Because looking at the raw, aggregated data hurts too much, you choose total avoidance. You make the minimum payments on autopilot and pray that a future raise, a tax refund, or time itself will resolve the crisis. But time is an incredibly expensive asset when you are paying double-digit interest. At this level, a single unexpected disruption can cause a total financial collapse. A transmission failure, a medical emergency, or a sudden reduction in work hours will shatter the fragile ecosystem. When you are already carrying $35,000, one more setback feels like a definitive breaking point. Your closest relationships begin to fray at the edges. Money becomes a conversational landmine. You become defensive, short-tempered, and isolated. Some people begin actively lying to those they love, not out of malice, but out of a desperate desire to protect them from the crushing weight of the shame. But reality remains undefeated. The longer you hide the debt, the heavier it grows. This stage demands a complete psychological reset. Simply spending less or making a bit more will no longer suffice. You require radical transparency, a structured payoff strategy, and a focused, sustained attack on the principal balances. Comfort is no longer on the table. The objective is pure financial survival and systemic recovery. At this threshold, the problem evolves from a mathematical crisis into a profound crisis of identity. You stop asking, how do I optimize my payments? Instead, you start asking, what is wrong with me? Who have I become? That realization is deeply painful because a six-figure debt load feels like an undeniable personal failure. You might be highly successful, deeply responsible, and respected in every other area of your life, but financially you feel entirely fraudulent. You look accomplished to the outside world while privately living under a permanent storm cloud of impending ruin. This tier of debt is rarely accidental. It is typically the product of a collapsed business venture, severe lifestyle inflation, chronic patterns of unmitigated borrowing, or a long domino chain of compromised choices. But it is rarely born from pure ignorance. More often, it is driven by emotional pain, deep-seated fear, social keeping up, or trying to sustain a standard of living you never actually earned. The debt begins to dictate your self-talk. I am fundamentally broken with money. I ruin everything I build. I will be paying this off until the day I die. Once these narratives take root, your intrinsic motivation dies. And when your motivation dies, your debt wins by default. This is the danger zone for high-risk, desperate decisions. People begin hunting for a silver bullet. They throw their remaining capital into highly volatile investments, day trading, or crypto speculation to win it all back. They borrow against their heavily penalized retirement accounts. They chase the fantasy of a single giant windfall instead of accepting the reality of a slow, disciplined grind. But massive debt ignores your fantasies. It only yields to structural patience. The resolution here is slow, unglamorous, and demanding. It requires massive income acceleration, permanent lifestyle adjustments, strategic restructuring, and a multi-year horizon. To survive this level, you must separate your human worth from your liabilities. The debt is a financial variable you are currently managing. It is not your identity. That mental boundary is the single thin line between ultimate recovery and complete personal collapse. This is where debt fundamentally alters the trajectory of your entire life. At this magnitude, you are no longer trying to optimize your lifestyle or fix your credit score. You are fighting a war to protect your fundamental future. This debt is typically a complex web, a deeply underwater mortgage, a liquidated business with personal guarantees, massive back taxes, catastrophic medical bills, or multiple high-interest obligations stacked directly on top of each other. The sheer gravity of the number alters your psychological physics. Every single daily choice carries massive structural consequences. Every monthly payment is a high-stakes chess move. A single missed cycle can initiate a cascade of legal actions or asset seizures. The stress transitions from acute anxiety into a chronic physical state of being, wearing down your immune system, your marriage, and your capacity to hope. This tier introduces the visceral fear of total material liquidation, losing the family home, having the vehicle repossessed, watching your business assets sold off, watching your public reputation shattered. Because the number feels completely abstract and impossible to comprehend, many individuals become entirely numb. Your brain shuts down its emotional receptors to protect itself. You enter a state of pure functional survival. You clock into work, you go through the motions, you submit the payments, but you carry a quiet, heavy despair every single day. The critical truth of this level is that not all large debt is structurally identical. Some of it is tied to tangible, depreciating assets that can be sold. Some of it can be legally restructured or negotiated down. Some of it is the cost of an asset that will eventually cash flow again, but some of it is pure, toxic, unsustainable waste. At this threshold, pride is a luxury you can no longer afford. You need qualified professional guidance, aggressive legal strategy, and a willingness to make brutal choices. Sometimes the path forward is a relentless, years-long repayment campaign. Sometimes it requires hard asset liquidation. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is accept a massive loss, file for restructuring, and clear the ground so a new life can actually grow. The single fatal error at this level is denial. With six-figure liabilities, denial is the fastest path to absolute ruin. The individuals who successfully navigate their way out of this abyss are not the luckiest, the smartest, or the highest earners. They are the ones who possess the raw courage to look the monster directly in the eye, accept the total reality of their situation, and stop pretending that a miracle was going to save them. A massive debt load will test every single boundary of your character, your resilience, and your relationships. But those who endure the fire and do the work come out the other side entirely transformed, unshakable, profoundly wise, and completely free.